Yeah, true. And it's, really not a resume. Yeah, it's funny when I was yeah.
Well, I think that not upgrading the software is overcoming a problem that I couldn't overcome last night. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See how things work out, Brian.
Sometimes they just do, Yeah, I think it did.
I started the next audio file just to get it going because it's easy to edit out those sections. So
is this getting a signal? Do you know? Can you tell?
Not out here.
So I believe it's on and good to go.
Yeah. Let me see.
It's not on me.
Here.
Okay.
Do some. I don't know if someone.
Yeah. This person looks good at it. Yeah.
Give it a test now.
No. Yeah, I think that's probably okay, right?
Okay, yeah.
All right. Did you say 10:30?
Yeah.
So with any section breaks, it doesn't matter. We can always edit the file. So,
but it's easier to work with them when they're a smaller file size, right?
Yeah.
So it's this thing that isn't working. So we'll just do that.
Okay.
I'll just give you those hand signals when you
Okay.
do the file.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a master volume. See that fourth one over? Yeah.
How does it sound to that? Oh, let's do a test. Hey, everybody. Can you hear me? Let's come back in and get started. Is that too loud?
It's a little loud.
A little loud, yeah. So you might turn it up then?
Yeah. Use your inside voice, Brian.
I don't have one. So, Angie, that ArcPad thing that I told you about, so no, since they didn't upgrade the software, it works. So, it's a Service Pack 2 thing.
Oh,
So,
weird.
yeah, it works now, so.
Brian, I'll start out with another drawing.
Okay.
All right, folks, we're going to do our next drawing here. All right, number 608. 608. 608.
Yes.
Right, yeah, then it might work out for you.
You get to choose, yeah. All right, we're going to do fireworks. Yeah. Take it away, Brian.
All right. So we're gonna pick up where we left off here, and what we're gonna do now is we're gonna go to the Alliance for Public Gardens JS website, and we're gonna download the data model. So the method that we're gonna use today to do it would be different than if you were going to do it for use at your own garden. So right now we have what we call a beta test program going on with the data model. We've been working on the data model for a few years now. And we just now kind of entered beta testing of it, where we're feeling pretty confident that it's starting to solidify into a version that we're happy to really get out there. And because it has been used for a long time, we're pretty confident that most of this stuff works. But this beta testing program is essentially put together to allow people to test it out their own garden and make sure that it has kind of all the stuff that they have that they need in it. And we're kind of collecting feedback from people to make improvements to the next version of it. So because we have this beta testing program going, we have a sign-up page for people that are going to download the data model. So you can choose to be either a user of the data model, where a user, we're not going to bother you much, but you can also choose to be a partner. And our partners in the beta testing program, we are doing a little bit of a trade-off, is that if you sign up to be a partner, we'll provide you with a little bit of technical support to get going. So if you have questions, you can give us a call, and we can help you walk through any problems or questions that you may have. And in exchange, we're asking for, at the end of the beta program period, which is a year, or 6 months, excuse me, we're asking for a little bit of feedback on your experience with it. So what that means is that we're going to send out a survey about what your experience was with it, pretty short. And then we're also asking for kind of a little brief case study document that shows an example of how you use the data model at your garden. So if you went out and you mapped some of your plant collections with that, we'd want like provide us with a map of that you produced, and just a little paragraph or two about how you did it. And that way we can share that information with the rest of the people who may be interested in using this, so you can see how other gardens are doing it. So there's two different ways that you can be involved in the program. One's as a user, and one's as a partner. The main point is that you have to go through and sign up to download the model. But what we're going to do today for this workshop, we won't go through that sign up process. So, okay, oops, we're on this one. So to download the data model, what we're going to do is go ahead and open up your web browser. And I'll start from scratch here so we can all go along together. And after it opens up, we will go to type in the web address is www.apgg.org. And this brings you to the Alliance for Public Gardens GIS website. And from here, if you go to Events at the top, and then on the left, click on Workshops. And then as you scroll down, the first group of links you see here is for today's workshop. And I basically put everything on here, so you can go back and get this stuff at a later date if it's helpful to you. So there's a copy of the agenda on here. There is a copy of my presentation slides, if there's anything in there that you need. And then there's this page for videos and data. So if you click on the videos and data link, it'll take you to this page. And when the workshop is all said and done, and maybe a week or two from now, we'll post all of the videos from today on there. And apparently this morning's session was recording, so we got that as well. So everything should be on there eventually. But right now I've got all the data that we're going to work with today on here. So that this Arnold Arboretum GIS demo that didn't work on this computer, you can, if you have ArcGIS 10 with the latest service pack installed on your computer, you can download this on your own, and you can see how we've organized things for the Arnold Arboretum and see what we're doing with that. So it could be a good demo if you want to kind of have a point of reference on how other people are doing things. There is the data model poster is on here, so that really complicated graphic that I showed. You can download that and look at it so where you can actually read it. So that's on there. And then there's some workshop data on here, which we'll download in a little while. But right now we want to just download the top file here, which is the data model itself. So you click on the download link for that. And when the file download box comes up, hit save. And then it's going to ask you where you want to save it. So on the left-hand side here, under computer, click on thaw space 0, T drive. And then leave the file name as it is and hit save. Since we're all downloading at once, it will probably bring the internet to a screeching halt, but we'll see how it goes. Yeah, I think I really messed it up now. Is it downloading for anybody? Okay. Oh yeah, mine is complete too. It was just so fast I expected it to take longer. Okay, my bad. Okay, so did that work for everybody? If you're using Firefox to download, it might put it in a weird location. Does anybody have that file? The desktop, that's fine too, but if it does put it on the desktop, just to make things simple, copy it and paste it to that C drive. Okay, great. Yep. All right, is there anybody who hasn't got that finished? It's under events. Under events, under workshops. All right. Are we good? Okay, I'm going to move on here. Okay, so you can leave that web browser page open if you want. If you close it, no big deal. But we'll probably go back to it later. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to open up our catalog, and we're going to take that file that we downloaded, and we're going to use it to create a geodatabase. So if you go to the Start menu, and you go to All Programs, and you go to ArcGIS, let's actually do something just to make our lives easier here. Will you right-click on ArcCatalog 10, and do Pin to Taskbar, and now the shortcut will stay there for us so we can get it easier. And do the same thing with ArcMap 10. Do Pin to Taskbar. That way we don't have to come back to the Start menu every time. This is an optional step. And then once you've done that, just either click on the new shortcut here or click on ArcCatalog off the Start menu. All right, everybody ready? Okay, so now we have our catalog open. If you click on the folder connections on our T drive there, you should see the file we just downloaded should be listed here. Everybody have that now? Okay. Now we're going to have to go through. Unfortunately, there's not a really easy way to go through these steps. I mean, I've simplified it to the most easiest way possible, but there's not like a install like you would have with other software and things like that. So we have to go through kind of a few convoluted steps to make this happen, but you only do this once you get everything up and running by following these steps. You should be good to go. And all these steps that I'm going to go through are, if you register for the beta program and you download this data model, there's a Getting Started document that walks you through all this stuff step by step. So that's a good reference document if you need help with that. Okay, so the first step we're going to do here is in the contents pane of our catalog, right-click and do New File Geodatabase. And there's two different choices for creating a geodatabase here. There's a file geodatabase and a personal geodatabase. The file geodatabase is a newer, more advanced format, so I usually recommend doing that for most people. So in this, where it says New File Geodatabase, just if it still stayed highlighted, just type in temp. If not, you can right-click on it and hit rename and click temp. And the reason we're naming it temp is because it's something we're going to delete. It's only kind of an intermediate stage here, so we'll just note it that way. Okay, once you've got that named temp, you can click on it, right-click, and do import. And at the bottom, you should see XML workspace document. If that option is grayed out for you, is it grayed out for anybody? Okay, good. All right, so click on XML workspace document, and it brings up this window here. And it says, what do you want to import? We're gonna do schema only. And this means it's going to import a blank, empty version of this database. If you can create these XML documents for databases that have data in them if you wanted to share it with somebody. So that's when you would use the data option. But today we're just doing schema only. And then where it says specify the XML source to import, click on the folder option or icon. And then it should open up to your T drive here. If it doesn't, click on computer. And then double-click on your T drive, and you should see the ArcGIS Public Garden data model file. We'll click on that and click Open. And it should be reflected there, and then hit Next. And now it brings up a list of all the different things that are inside that file that it's going to import into this geodatabase for us. You can take a look at these if you want, but we'll review these in a little bit more detail in a bit. And then click Finish. And now it's going to go through and it will slowly start to import all that stuff into this geodatabase for us. So you can see it's listing off the different feature classes and tables that are inside that document that will now be inside of our geodatabase. And now, this usually moves really fast at first, and then it gets to the end, and it's going to hang for a little while, and it's going to make you think that it crashed, but usually it keeps going. So this may take a few minutes for everybody. Are there any questions on anything at this point?
What would be the difference in using file or personal?
The file geodatabase is touted to have better performance than the personal geodatabase, and the personal geodatabase maxes out at 2 gigabytes of data. So if you wanted to store more than that in there, you're going to hit a limit. Most people don't run up against that wall, but it can happen. Anything else on that, Angie? Why file's better than personal? The only advantage I know of using the personal geodatabase is that you can open it up and access. So if you need to rename like a field or something like that, you can do that. It's not highly recommended because you can break things, but but it can be handy. So when I was designing the data model, I used that a lot because it's really easy to edit it. So. All right, so yeah, so as I said, it kind of hangs here on this last step, importing this last object here, but hopefully it will finish soon. Although somebody I spoke with, was it you that was having that import issue?
Yeah, I think David did.
David did, yeah, that's what it was. He said it took like an hour or something like that to finish this last step.
Yeah.
Hopefully it won't do that. I tested it out a few minutes ago and it worked. So it depends on how fast your computer is, I guess. Any other questions while we wait? Any funny jokes? Any day now.
Ryan,
Yeah.
are you doing anything at the conference this week in terms of, you're not doing any workshops or anything?
I'm not doing any workshops. Thanks for asking. But I will be at Angie and I will be at the vendor booth in the vendor area, and I will have the Arnold Arboretum GIS up and running there if you want to see how the data model is working. And I'll also be showcasing this new web application that we're developing. It's built on top of the data model. So if you've created a GIS using the data model, you can also download, or will be able to download, this web application, and it makes all your data available through a web browser interface. So that's really cool if you want to be able to share information with visitors or other staff who don't have any GIS experience. It's a great way to do it. So I'll be showing that off in its infancy form, but it's coming along pretty nicely. When the vendor thing is Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? Excuse me. Yeah.
Essentially a half day each day, but it's at different times.
Right. I think there's usually like lunch in that area or something like that. So.
I have a question about BGBase.
Sure.
And we've used BGBase for our orchid collection, but we haven't really used it much for our outdoor collection. We had someone from BGBase come and give a tutorial. We were asking about the link between the two,
Mm-hmm.
and he seemed somewhat skeptical that
Yes.
it was going to match up. And I'm not overly concerned because we don't have any of our outdoor collections
Right.
in BGBase.
But lots of people do.
But lots of people do.
Yeah.
And I think there's expectation that we continue to use BGBase.
Yeah. So, is there anybody else who's using BGBase here? You guys are using BGBase. You guys are. You use it? We've been working on a project at the Arnold Arboretum in conjunction with BGBase to allow for round-trip editing of BGBase data in ArcGIS. So the system is designed so that you can make edits in BGBase, make edits in ArcGIS, and it will reconcile the changes. So if someone makes an edit on the same record at the same time, it will sort it out. And it's coming along pretty well. Actually, we've finished our side of it, so the GIS side works. It's the BGBase side that's still having some issues. But it's pretty close, and I'd say 3 to 6 months is a pretty reasonable timeline for that to be finished. So that will hopefully make things a lot easier.
Did you talk to them when they were skeptical?
Was that a month ago? Not skeptical, but he said there was some issue with their database.
They've been having problems getting their stuff to export correctly.
Yeah, because there's some of their fields allow multiple words, and so it has caused a lot of issues. So.
Currently, I do an overwrite where I export from ArcGIS into BGBase. They wrote us a specific schema to do that, and it fails all the time. And it's not easy. So, I'm hoping they can get it ironed out.
So that solution that we're working on will require that you have SQL Server software installed. That's the bridge between the two. So it's not the most simple or elegant, but it will allow you to do it. So okay, is everybody's completed now? Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, now we can move forward here. All right. So now that we've got this installed into this temp geodatabase, you can double click on it just to confirm that we've got stuff inside of it. So you guys should see a view similar to this, and I'll go over what these things are in a little bit after we finish a few more steps. But what happens now that we've downloaded this and put this in here is it doesn't have a coordinate system assigned to it. So because we want this, it could be used with lots of different gardens and lots of different coordinate systems. We don't have one assigned. So it's a little bit tricky with ArcGIS to be able to change a coordinate system correctly with this. So there's a step that we have to go through here. And to do that, we're going to open up ArcMap. So click on your ArcMap icon shortcut here, either on the taskbar or from the start menu. And it's always a good idea when switching back and forth between ArcCatalog and ArcMap to close ArcCatalog. Sometimes it will put a lock on things so that you can't make changes to it, so it can cause some problems. So just go ahead and close out ArcCatalog. When the getting started thing comes up, we want to go click on New Maps here, and click on blank map at the top. I'm just going to start with a blank one. You can also just cancel out of that box and it does the same thing. Okay, when this window comes up here, we're going to hit the Add Data button. It's a plus on kind of a yellow rectangle. And then from the Add Data box here, double-click on Folder Connections, and then our T, colon, and then our temp.gdb. And then, once you get in there, you should see second from the top, there should be base map. Double-click on that. And then click on Area of Interest. This could be, basically, we're just adding something in here so that we can perform a step. And so it could be any one of these things. But Area of Interest, let's add that one in. So click Add. And ArcMap will take its time doing this step. And now you should see this box that comes up and it says Unknown Spatial Reference. And because there's no spatial reference or coordinate system assigned to it, so that's what we're going to fix right now. So you can click OK. Is everybody doing okay with this? Okay. And now we need to open up a toolbar. So if you go to the Customize menu.
Just wait 1 second. I'm waiting for my computer.
Sure.
So we hit OK where it brings up that window.
Yes. Yep. And then you go to the Customize menu.
I'm behind. You say add data?
Yeah. Add data.
Yeah.
And then go to, let's see, I'm not sure where it's going to drop you off, but go to Folder Connections. You see that? Hold on, Mia's coming. Okay, so to add that toolbar, it's the Customize, and then Toolbars. And then the one we want to add is called Distributed Geodatabase. I'm not going to go in too much detail what we're doing here because you don't really need to know. We're just assigning a spatial reference to this thing, really. Give everybody a minute to catch up. All right, how are we doing? Do you have a question?
Distributed geodatabase.
Yeah, so does everybody have this distributed geodatabase toolbar up? Okay. So there's only one button available on this guy, and that's the one we're going to click. It's on the far right, and it's Extract Data. And it should bring up this Extract Data wizard. And it asks us, what do we want to extract? We want to extract schema only again. This thing's empty, so we don't need the data or any data, because there's nothing in it. And then which geodatabase do you want to extract it to? So we want to extract it to a geodatabase. And then we want to click on this button here, which is the folder icon. And then we want to save this in our T drive, so click on the T folder connection. So if you don't have folder connections up from the drop-down, you can select folder connections. And then you can double-click on T:, and you should see our temp.gdb in there. As I mentioned, these steps that we're going through are all in that Getting Started document, one step at a time. So if you need to go back and reference that at a later date, you can do that. So in here, what we need to do is we're going to create a new geodatabase that we're going to extract this stuff to. So on the far right, you should see the gray cylinder for New File Geodatabase. So you click on that. And then we're going to name this one something a little bit more informative than temp. So I'm going to call mine GIS for Public Gardens, so our workshop. And then with the data model, we sometimes release different versions of it periodically. So it's a good idea. You don't have to do it in the name of this, but it's a good idea to keep track of which version of the data model you're using. That makes it easier if you ever do need some help with it for me to be able to help you out. So I'm going to put in the version of the data model, which is 1.0.2. And then I'm going to put, because it has points in there and we don't want to confuse the program, I'm going to put another point and I'm going to put .gdb. It's like the file extension for it. And click enter. All right, we ready? Oh, just hit enter. Good? Sure.
Well, I think it's thinking I'm trying to open a file instead of create a new one. I can get around that. I feel like I'm in the same window, but when I click here, it's not. Yeah.
This should be right.
Yep, you're right.
Can you get your screen to look like this?
No. Well, because I'm trying to name the. No, can't be that. Oh. Oh, I see. Right. Yeah, so I'm renaming it. Yeah. Not. Okay.
Okay, so once you get the Geodatabase renamed, just highlight it in this window by clicking on it. And then we're going to click open. And now you should see in this box, it should have the name of that database selected. You still have a problem?
No, there it is. I mean, I can read it, but it's.
Oh, it just didn't rename. Did you type that in there? Okay, so right. Oh, you can't. So
Yeah, I
just,
think I'm in the wrong.
you can rename this later. You're good.
Okay, so
Or you can create another one if you want to rename it.
what's happening is, yeah, this window, I have to look at the same.
Yes, you have to select that. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll work on that.
Just when I say GIS Public Art, you can
Yeah.
about
And now I'm just.
Yep, and then you're caught up.
Okay.
Go hit that up there. Just click that. And hit open. You're good. Yes.
He looked at everything was on the desktop, he got lost in it, but
Yes. So it's on the desktop.
I just moved it to the screen.
Well, we'll just do it. Rename it GIS or Public Art. And then so this 1.0.2 dot yeah, because it's refreshing. Okay. All right. Is everybody caught up now? Now, see how many problems we have with this little step? That's why we're running through this stuff, because it's not the most clear. But that's where those instructions come in handy, is that we have written all this stuff out step by step. So hopefully it will make it easier by going through it today, plus having the instructions. Hopefully you'll be able to pull it off when you try it.
This is all just, the initial setup.
Yeah, it's just we do it once, and this is it. So, okay, so now we all have it. It says T/GIS or Public Gardens 1.02.gdb or something close, maybe new file, geodatabase, whatever you got going. We've got a new one that we're going to extract it to. And now, importantly, we have to click this Show Advanced Options for Overriding Data Extraction Defaults, the bottom left. Did you guys skip ahead?
I got in my panic to catch up. So now I just canceled my extraction, and now I don't. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So you just have to click on the the extract button at the end of the distributed geodatabase. Sometimes ArcGIS doesn't appreciate it when you cancel something. Yeah, it doesn't like to go back. Is it still canceling? You might want to just crash ArcGIS and reopen it. It could be doing that for a long time. Someday I'd like to make it so that you can do like a install like you do with other software where it just does it for you, but I don't know how to do that, so I'll work on it though. What's that? Yeah, right. Yeah, see, winning prizes is maybe not all it's cracked out to be. Everybody else is to this point, though, yeah? Okay. I'm gonna let this thing run because it's gonna take a second. We'll get these guys caught up. So everyone's got this Show Advanced option box checked here. Once you got that, click Next. And then on this page, it should have everything already included, but go ahead and click on the Include All button just for safety's sake. And that just makes sure that we're going to extract everything the data model is going to get assigned this new reference. Click on Next. And now this is where we need to actually assign the spatial reference to the geodatabase. So I keep saying spatial reference or coordinate system or projection. Those kind of things are all kind of synonymous. So keep that in mind. Okay, so what we want to do here on this Output Spatial Reference window is click on Specify a New Spatial Reference. And it should have, under Dataset Name, it should say Base Map. If it doesn't, you can click the drop down and do that, but I think that should be your only option. And then put on Output Spatial Reference, you want to click the Edit button down here in the lower right. And on this window here, we're going to do Select. And now if you already have something with this spatial reference assigned to it, you can use the Import button and you can copy it from that. But for now, we're just going to do Select because this is our first time doing it. So basically, it brings up now this coordinate system window, and it has two different options here. One's geographic and one's projected. Geographic coordinate systems are things that are using like lat-long. So if you see latitude and longitude values, I know you guys have seen those before. Those are geographic coordinate systems. Projected coordinate systems use units like feet and meters and things like that, and that's what we're going to do. So we go on to projected coordinate system. And then, as I mentioned before, we're going to use a state plane system because that's the most common for our group of folks. And then it brings up all these different choices of NAD 1927, NAD 83. Basically, I'm not going to get too far into what these mean, but you can see that it has these units in parentheses at the end. We want to use a NAD 83, and we want to use US feet. So find the one that says NAD 1983, parentheses US feet. Double click on that. And then it brings up a list of all the different choices for basically based on states in the country. So if we scroll over, we're going to be working with some data from the UC Davis Arboretum today. So that's in Northern California, and it's in California 2. So at the top of one of the columns, you see NAD 1983, state plane, California, Roman numeral 2, and then it should say FIPS 0402. That's the one we're looking for. Everybody find that? Does anybody not find that? Hands? No? Okay, good. So click on that guy and click Add. And now you can see it populates this details box with the details of that coordinate system. We're not going to go into it too specifically. We just want to make sure we have the right one. And again, if you need to find out which one to use for your garden, talk to your local governing jurisdiction and find out what they're using. That's usually the right choice. So hit apply, hit OK, and now you can see that the output spatial reference box has got some information in there for us now. And then we'll hit next on this. And it says, what do you want to do once the extraction has been completed? Leave the default option of no further action, and then hit finish. And now it's going to go through and it's basically copying everything from that temp geodatabase into the new one that we created, but it's assigning that coordinate system to it, and also assigning what we call extents to it, or a default kind of boundary, or how far out that this thing can go. So based on that coordinate system, it's saying, okay, well, you're in this part of the world, here's some bounding box for you, and it's setting all this stuff up in the background for us. And we don't need to know a lot about it, but it's once you do this step, it makes sure that everything's going to work right once we get it into ArcMap. So this step can potentially take a little bit. It's kind of doing the same thing that we did when we imported it before, so it may get to this endpoint and hang for a second. So we may have to wait a little bit on this one. Any other questions? You guys are all sorted now? Everything's working? Awesome.
One click can send you off in the wrong direction.
Yeah, it's yeah. So we debated trying to can some of this stuff for the workshop, and I thought it was important that we actually go through these steps because it's kind of the school of hard knocks. You know, you have to experience some of the problems because you're no doubt going to run into them on your own as you do this. So yeah, start gearing you up for it. But there are lots of great support options available for ArcGIS. I'm, of course, always willing to help out with questions about the data model. I try to get back to you as quick as I can through the Alliance for Public Gardens GIS website. There's some contact information on there. There's also a bug report form on there. If you go to support on that website, on our website, you can go and there's a little form where you can fill out any problems that you've had, and I'll try to address those right away and try to figure out what might be going wrong and get back to you with some kind of solution. But as a lot of times the problems can be with ArcGIS or the software, and for that there's lots of great support options available through Esri. You have current maintenance on your software, you can of course give them a call and they'll help you work through your problems, and that's usually your best option, right? But there's also a great amount of information there on their forums and through technical support articles where you can search. And a lot of times if you come up with an error code or something on the screen, you can type that in on there and it'll bring up things that are related to that issue. So a lot of times someone's already dealt with this and you can just find it and you don't have to deal with calling somebody up and waiting on hold and all that stuff that goes along with phone technical support. And you can usually find an answer that way really well. Well?
So as far as hardware, what are the minimum requirements for a computer?
So the data model itself doesn't really have any hardware requirements, but the Esri software does. And that information is available on their website. But generally, this day and age, most computers that are capable of running Windows 7 or even the last version of Windows Vista, will be capable of running the GIS software. But there's going to be performance issues associated with that if you're only using kind of a minimum requirement computer. I usually recommend if people are going to go out and buy a system to get what we call kind of like the workstation class of computer that has a little higher performance components in it, a little bit more memory, a little faster processor. And I'd say, you can get one of those for about $2,000. It's going to perform really well for you. But if you went to Best Buy and bought one of the cheapy $800 computers there, probably not going to work that well for you. But the best thing to do is to look at the software requirements on Esri's website and just make sure you just go a notch or two up from that. So again, we got to wait for this thing. Hopefully it won't take quite as long as last time, but it very well might. Are there any other questions while we have a minute here? All right. Using ArcGIS or using the data model itself?
ArcGIS.
I don't actually have a good handle on that. There was a survey that was done in like 2006 of how many gardens were doing that, but obviously a lot's changed since then, so there's no real good indicator. I know that since we've started the beta program with the data model, we've had 44 gardens or so sign up for it, so there's quite a few gardens that are at least trying to use it. I don't know what. It's internet all around the world, yeah. But that's been since March, so.
I went to the APGA curatorial conference that they had at the Denver Botanic Garden, and there was, they did a show of hands of who was using GIS, and I know most of the people that are kind of loosely affiliated with the data model at least, and there was a fair amount of people that I had never seen before and had no idea were using GIS, and had set up their own data models. I kind of thought there in Portland and some Canadian people, so.
It's definitely expanding all the time. There's a lot more people going that direction. So, all right, is everybody's done? Yeah, anybody not? Did the screen not finish for them? Yours is almost there, hopefully. Is it on waste container? Is the waste container on there somewhere? You passed it. Oh. I'll wait for yours to complete, and then hopefully we'll be done. So if you are complete, we can. All right, we can move forward here. So go ahead and close ArcMap. No need to save changes. And then open up ArcCatalog. And now in our catalog, under folder connections, go to our T. And now we should see this new Geodatabase. If you didn't get a chance to name it correctly during the previous step, you can right-click on, if it says New File Geodatabase or whatever, and click on Rename and name it to match this. It may make the rest of the instructions for the day easier if it matches. So it should be GIS Republic Gardens with 1.0.2 at the end of it. Okay, so now we'll take a second and we'll explore the data model just a little bit and see how it works. So if you double click on the GIS Republic Gardens icon here, or name, it'll open up. Oh, and there's one last step that we have to do. So one of the small issues that's in the software right now is that when it did that step, it left a couple things out that we needed to copy over into this. So we're going to copy those things manually. So to do that, we're going to go into switch over to our temp. So on the catalog tree on the left, you should be able to see our temp geodatabase we created before. If you click on that, you can see that. First thing that stands out is this public garden toolbox here didn't get copied over there, and neither did this aerial photography catalog. So if you click on one of those things, and then hold down the Control key, and click on the other, so you now have aerial photography catalog and public garden tools selected. You can right-click on either one of those highlighted ones and hit Copy. And then click on the GIS Republic Gardens Geodatabase, and you can right-click anywhere in the blank space here and hit Paste. Aerial Photography Catalog and Public Garden Tools. It's coming from the temp Geodatabase. Unfortunately, that step doesn't copy everything. So, and then it'll bring up this data transfer box. It's just giving you a summary of what it's doing, and you just hit OK. And now if you switch back and forth between temp and GIS Republic Gardens, you can see that now hopefully everything's in there. Oh, it looks like it left another one out too. Looks like it left a journal out. So you can also go back into temp, right-click on journal, and hit copy. Go back to GIS Republic Gardens and right-click and hit paste. And it also forgot journal, guys. So for one reason or another, it doesn't work perfectly. Okay, so now if you click back and forth between temp and GIS Republic Gardens, they should look identical. The difference is that our GIS or Public Gardens one has all of our spatial reference information assigned to it. And again, you only have to do all this stuff once. I know it's a little tedious, but it's good to do. Okay, so let's go on a little tour of some of the things that are in the data model. Is most everyone caught up at this point? Okay. So you can see on all these different objects that are in here, they kind of give you a little brief description of what these things are. So at the top we have this aerial photography catalog, and what this is kind of like another container that can hold all of our different aerial photography. So as time goes by, your aerial photography will get out of date, and you can generally get new aerial photography from your local governing jurisdiction. So the same place that you called to find out what coordinate system to use, when you give those guys a call, ask them, like, hey, do you guys have any aerial photography that I can have? And they'll say, oh, yeah, sure, we've got all these different years. Just mention that you work for Botanic Garden, and most Botanic Gardens are generally nonprofits, and they'll usually be able to share that information with you. Otherwise, you have to go out and purchase it, and it can be kind of expensive. But I haven't run into anybody yet who said that their city or county wouldn't give them the photos for free. So when you ask them for photography, they'll give you photos for maybe 2010 or 2009, maybe 2011 if you're lucky. And then you'll get those, and you can put those into this container here to store them. But then as time goes on, a few years down the road, you realize that your photos are out of date, and you can go back to them and ask them for new ones again. And you want to keep all the different years, and you can go back and kind of look at how things have changed over time. So it's nice to have these things. And this air photography catalog can hold all those different years for you in one kind of neat, organized space. Do you have a question, Raul?
No, just a comment. I just got an estimate for a surveyor company. Actually, two of them. They for $2,000. They will fly over our property, 160 acres, and give us an ortho photo.
That's pretty cheap, actually.
Yeah, it's really cheap.
Yeah.
40-inch resolution.
Cool. I'll talk a little bit more about air photography in a bit, but for now, we just know that we have this placeholder here to put all that information in as we go. Yeah.
Is there the potential as the years progress with the photos that you could have different layers associated with each photo, so you could almost...
You can, and we have some stuff built into the data model to support a little bit of change over time. So if a plant dies, you can have a date associated with when that plant died, and then we'll save that. You won't see it on your map anymore. We kind of turn it off so you don't see it, but you can roll back in time and you can look at when that plant was there if you want. And we're not throwing that information away, so you can store it. And there's also some time animation stuff in ArcGIS that allows you to, once you set up dates with things, like if you associate a date with a photo, it will be able to show you. It'll slide through, and then the photo will change over time, as depending on how many photos you have. Obviously, how good it's going to be. But all right, back to the Geodatabase here. The next thing you'll see down under the photo catalog is base map, which is a feature data set. And we'll go into that. That holds all kinds of stuff, and we'll go into that in a minute. Then you'll see there's an icon for enclosure here that's a table. And you'll see that there's a bunch of different tables in here. And those all have different purposes that we'll go into in a little bit more detail. And under the enclosure table, you see what we call a relationship class. And that basically is a relationship between enclosure and barriers. So all the relationships in the data model are named in a similar fashion so that you can tell what the relationship is. So in this case, it means that an enclosure has barriers. So enclosure is related to another feature class called barrier. And what that really is that an animal enclosure can have barriers around it. So it may have a fence around it, and you want to know when you click on that enclosure, you want to know that the fences that create that enclosure are associated with that. So it's a relationship that we built into it. Under that, there's a few more tables, and then you'll see this Public Gardens Tools, which we copied in here. If you double-click on that, it's supposed to have two other things in it, but it looks like it didn't work. So we'll go back to this temp thing and see if it's in there, and it's not. So there's always little weird things that happen depending on your version of software. If you're using the latest service pack of ArcGIS 10, when you do this step, it will copy the tools inside of it. We're not using the tools today, but essentially what they are is there's a few different tools that we've built to kind of simplify some common steps that you may go through. And those steps are kind of like loading data, so it has some steps that if you've drawn boundaries for the different sections of your garden, it'll go through, and for every plant, it'll go through and assign that name of that section to those plants. So it kind of automates some processes. And I'll get, during the lunch break, I'll get this set up and I can show you a little bit more about that. But as I mentioned, if you're using the latest service pack ArcGIS, this step will work correctly and everything will be in there. Okay, let's take a look inside of the base map feature class, or feature data set. So if you go up to second from the top, double click on that guy, you can see that most of the meat of the data model is stored inside of this feature data set. And the reason that these things are in here is because they have some kind of relationship in a topology that I mentioned earlier. The topology is that set of rules that governs kind of data quality that says that if your sidewalks are overlapping your planting bed, it will show that as an error. So all these different things have those kind of rules set up for it so that they can have data quality control. So there's too many different things, feature classes and relationships in here to go into in detail in today's workshop. But what we've done is that if you click on one of these things and you hit description, it'll bring up some information about what this particular feature class is. And sometimes it takes a little bit to get loaded. But you bring this up and it brings up this quick little description page with lots of information about this. So it says the name of this particular feature class. It says personal geodatabase feature class, even though it's in a file geodatabase. I don't know why it does that. And then it has this right here where we have our Alliance for Public Gardens GIS logo. You can change this to be an image of what the data is. So after you've drawn in your features, you can update this so it'll actually have an image of what you have in there. And then it has these tags here. And these tags are a way that you can search for things. So if you use that search feature that I showed really briefly in ArcMap, which I'll show a little bit more later, you can if you search for any one of these words, this feature class will show up as a result. So if you're going to look for something to hold, say, ponds, you can search for the word pond, and it will bring up a list of results for feature classes that have that tag in it. So it makes it so that if you're trying to find a particular place to store information, it'll show you which one to do. And then on here, it's just got a quick summary. This particular one is it shows boundaries of a data set or a project. And then it has a little bit more detailed description. So the area interest is a polygon feature class, and it's used to delineate the boundaries of a data set or a construction project, renovation project, event, research, or other projects. So it's basically the boundaries of a particular project. So that's an interesting one. If you scroll down in the catalog tree a little bit more, this one's very brief, but if you scroll down to Plant Center, this is the one that we would use to map our plants. And this one, sometimes there's a little error in the program where it won't show the description. If you hit Edit, it will let you edit this information, and you can type in your own information in here if you want. But if you go down to the description, we have a pretty long-winded description of what this feature class is used for. So some of these have a lot more information in them that you can see. So, but this is a really good way to find out what a particular feature class or object is used for. Are there any questions on that? Okay, so when you out of this, hit Cancel. And then we'll click on the Contents tab. And then in the upper left-hand corner, there should be an up arrow. Click on that, and it should go back to the view that we were at before. And I think that's all we need to talk about at this. We're going to use a few of these different feature classes today. We'll actually put some data into them. So we'll go through that in a little bit. All right. I think we are on this. Why don't we do you want to stop that for a minute?